pray. My mother was spiritual, and she really taught me that. And so I pray and I allow the spirits to guide me. And that makes me strong. Inside, my whole core is strong because of that. So it is my mother and my father. And my father taught me all of these survival skills and how to politic and how to strategize and how to build a following and a platform. Dad got into politics long before I was born. And he got into it because they would be off, around in the community, and people would talk to him about their struggles. And he was just determined to help them. And he grew and grew and learned and figured out how to help them best. And it was like the path was laid for him. And her being a residential school survivor and being very cultural, when she got out of residential school and she went back to her community, her grandparents took her and they said, what did you learn in that school? And she told them, I can read a little bit, I can sew, I can write a little bit, I can cook a little bit. And they said, so you're basically the same little child that left from here because you don't know how to be an Indigenous woman. You know none of the skills that a person your age should know from our community. And so they said, you can't leave home until you learn it all. And they started her training as if she was a little girl and took her forward. So she knew how to tan hides, how to do buckskin and beadwork and feather work, and how to butcher meat, how to skin animals, how to do everything, how to fish without even a fishing pole, how to survive in the wilderness. And then she was finally allowed to go out on her own. So she wound up at the Kokalitsa TB clinic out here in the Stalo territory in Chilliwack. She as a nurse's aide. And that's how she met my dad, because he was in there. He had TB. He saw her. She would walk by his window every day. He was up on the 3rd floor. Actually, I was with Dad, and we were at that same building. And he stopped and he looked up at a window and he said, this is where I saw her the first time. And he told me that story. But we would go picking fruit every summer. He'd be out on the road and I remember being just a really little baby crawling around in the strawberry fields while my brothers and sisters were picking. And then as I got older and I started to help out, I would get to keep 50 cents or something. And that was a big, huge, enormous treat back then because I could go buy candy. And I remember us picking up bottles on the side of the road and going to the dump and watching my brothers strip the metals out of vehicles and then hauling them uptown to sell it. I mean, we just did everything to survive. And somewhere along the way, because I didn't get to see Dad as much as I would have liked to, I lived with my mom they split up when I was 3. And then not long after, I wound up in residential school. And by the time I got out, Mom got me out. And she had a hip injury that had happened in a roundabout way because of residential school. And she had to have hip surgery, and she couldn't take care of us because it was a long, hard recovery. That's how we wound up in residential school. And when I got out, I went to live with her and didn't see my dad hardly ever. Maybe 3 or 4 times a year. He would make his way over to wherever we were, and I'd get to spend a weekend with him. He loved me dearly. You can read in the journals where he, missed my beautiful little daughter, Doreen. And I mean, he just couldn't be there because of the work he was doing. And I remember somewhere, I was quite young, thinking to myself, it's okay, because my children and my grandchildren, everybody's children and grandchildren will have a future because of him. If he was just being my father and the world didn't have him, what kind of world would we have? Who else is doing the work he's doing? Somehow in my very young mind, I figured that out. And I grew up more like a boy than a woman, than a girl, even when I was a small child and I was initiated into the traditional swan dancers. All the little girls would be one end of the hall learning the swan dance, and all little boys would be other end of the hall doing the war dance. And every second I could get away, I would just barrel my way down there and jump in with the boys. And then the old ladies would come and grab me by the scruff of the neck and drag me back. And Dad let me. He let me have, because I was the baby. And she said when I did that, he was laughing his head off. He thought it was so funny that's where I wanted to be. But I was raised reading legal documents. He would give me documents and he would tell me to read them and then tell him what they meant because he wanted me to learn. Dad had learned law when it was still illegal for us to have lawyers. And he was mentored in by a white lawyer who was an ally to us. That lawyer told him what the law was and told him how to fight these court cases. And he would go in and pretend he was an interpreter so that that was the only way he could be there to represent somebody, was as an interpreter. And so he would tell them, don't talk any English, pretend you don't speak any English, and we'll go in there and I'll take care of this for you. And, that's why he knew so much about law. That's why he received that honorary doctorate degree in law from UBC. I think it's funny because one time my brother Arthur called me and he said, I can't make it to Vancouver, so you're going to have to go. And so he calls me like at 8 o'clock at night, and then he sends me the document, and it's really thick. It's like over 100 pages of really convoluted legal jargon. And I said, okay, well, brief me, what's in here? And he said, no, you have to read it. He said, if I just brief you, you might miss something. You have to know that thing inside out by morning. So I had to stay awake all night long, going line by line, making my notes on it so that I'd be prepared the next day. And he was right. I went in and I knew that thing inside out. And so I was able, every time they tried to come up with something and kind of slip one by me, I'd like knock it down and go, no, that's not what it says. It says right here. And I would read out what it said, and I'd say, that means, and I would interpret it. And then they would have to admit that I was right, and then all the way through the whole thing. He was a great parent to me, but I didn't expect him to be a daddy the way some people expect their daddies to be. He taught me these skills that I'm surviving on today.